Hey guys, tonight we're getting dressed in the strangest, loudest, most gloriously confused decade fashion has ever produced. The 1990s. A time when your outfit could contain flannel, denim, neon, and inexplicable amounts of body glitter, all at once. And somehow that was considered a look. Before we begin, a genuine thank you to the listener who suggested this one. Your ideas are the reason this little channel keeps growing, and I read every single suggestion, even the strange ones, especially the strange ones. So if you enjoy these late-night wanders through history, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is, because somehow it's always the middle of the night for someone. The channel is also over on Spotify now if you'd rather drift off with just your ears. Links in the description. And for the truly dedicated insomniacs, there's an 8-hour ad-free version floating around for members, a full night of uninterrupted murmuring, no interruptions, no jump scares. Now dim the lights, switch on a fan for that soft background hum, get comfortable, and let your shoulders drop away from your ears where they've been living all day. Let's wonder about a few things together. Why did everyone dress like they got ready in the dark during a power outage? Why were the jeans wide enough to qualify as a separate room? Did anyone actually know how to work a choker, or did we all just wake up wearing them? Why did we pay extra money to buy jeans that already had holes in them? And why is your teenage niece now doing the exact same thing and calling it a personality? And here's the real mystery we'll unravel tonight. Why did an entire generation, who weren't even born yet, decide to dig all of this back out of the landfill? Spoiler, it's not nostalgia. It's stranger than that. So settle in. Congratulations. You've just woken up in 1994, your alarm clock is a radio playing a song you'll be sick of by Thursday, and your closet is about to make some truly baffling demands of you. Good luck. You open your eyes to a bedroom that assaults every sense at once. There's a lava lamp gurgling in the corner, a poster of a band you'll deny liking in 20 years, and a closet door that won't quite shut because it's physically overstuffed with fabric. This is your wardrobe now, a chaotic archive of textures and colours that seem to actively disagree with one another. And the strangest part is that in about 30 years, someone a third of your age will pay real money to own every single item you're about to reluctantly put on. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Right now it's morning, and morning in this decade has a particular texture to it. The light comes in grey and flat through the blinds. Somewhere down the hall a kettle is screaming, or maybe that's the television, which someone left on overnight tuned to a channel that only plays music videos. The air smells faintly of hairspray, because in this house someone is always applying hairspray, and the fine mist of it has settled over everything like a sticky floral snow. You sit up and survey the room. It's a lot to take in. There are cassette tapes stacked in unstable towers, their little paper spines hand-labelled in fading ink. There's a corded telephone tangled into a knot that would make a sailor weep. There's a magazine on the floor promising to teach you 16 ways to fold a bandana, which feels like 15 more than any reasonable person requires. Everything is designed to be looked at, touched, played with, and eventually shoved into a drawer. And then there's the closet. Oh, the closet. It hangs open just enough to reveal a wall of clashing fabrics, pressed together like commuters on a rush-hour train. Flannel elbows denim. A shiny nylon sleeve pokes out aggressively. Something velvet lurks in the back, plotting. Getting dressed here is not a simple act of covering your body. It's a negotiation, a series of decisions, each one louder than the last, and you haven't even had breakfast yet. Here's the thing you need to understand about this decade, the thing that explains almost everything that's about to happen to your body over the next 24 hours. Nobody here is trying to look subtle. Subtlety is not a value. Standing out, making a statement, being memorable, being loud, That's the currency. If your outfit doesn't make at least one adult sigh heavily, you haven't tried hard enough. It's the opposite of that later era where everyone dressed like a very expensive fog. You stretch, your joints crack, and you swing your feet onto the carpet, which is a colour that can only be described as an aggressive teal that has seen things. And as you stand there, blinking, contemplating the sartorial gauntlet ahead, you feel something you can't quite name. A kind of doomed optimism. Because you know, deep down, that whatever you put together this morning will look completely absurd in photographs. You know it while you're doing it, and you do it anyway, gleefully, because that's the whole spirit of the place. So take a breath. Steel yourself. That closet isn't going to conquer itself, and the world outside is full of people who have made equally baffling choices and are wearing them with total confidence. You're about to join them. The only real mystery is which specific bad idea you'll commit to first. Welcome to the morning. Your reflection is about to have some questions. Let's start with a flannel shirt. Because in 1994 you own approximately 9 of them, and none of them are ever buttoned correctly. You wear it open over a band tee or tied around your waist like a cotton belt of profound indifference, or layered under a second, larger flannel for reasons no one has ever successfully explained. The look is called grunge, and the entire point is to appear as though you got dressed while mildly annoyed at the concept of getting dressed. It's flossing with pine needles levels of effort in reverse. Pick one up and feel it. Real flannel is soft in a broken-in way, thin at the elbows, slightly pilled from 100 washes. The good ones are stolen, borrowed, or thrifted, never bought new, because a crisp new flannel gives off the tragic scent of someone trying too hard. You want yours to look like it survived a decade in the back of a truck. Bonus points if it belonged to a relative and still faintly smells of wood smoke and someone else's life. The colours are a moody parliament of reds, forest greens and washed-out blues, arranged in plaid patterns that clash beautifully when you layer them. And layer them you will. The rule, if there is a rule, is that a flannel is never a standalone garment. It's a component. It goes over the band tee, the one with the logo so faded you can barely read it, which is exactly how you like it. Legible band shirts are for people who found out about the band last week, now tying it around your waist. This is an art form and a statement. You knot the sleeves at your hips and let the body of the shirt hang behind you like a tail or a cape that has given up. It serves no function whatsoever. It doesn't keep you warm. It's not there in case of weather. It's there because a flannel around the waist says you're relaxed. You're unbothered. You have a spare shirt and simply cannot be troubled to wear it properly. It's the closest thing this decade has to a shrug you can wear. Think about how strange this is. Flannel was working clothing. Loggers wore it. Farmers wore it. It was the fabric of hard, cold, honest labour. And here you are, a teenager who has never chopped a single log, wearing it as a symbol of studied laziness. You've taken the uniform of exhaustion and turned it into the uniform of not caring, which is its own kind of exhaustion, just with better hair. Ever taken something built for hard work and used it purely to look like you're avoiding hard work? Congratulations, you've discovered grunge. The finishing touch is attitude. You can't just wear the flannel. You have to wear it like it wandered onto your body by accident and you're too indifferent to correct the situation. Slouch a little. Let one shoulder sag. Look faintly like you'd rather be somewhere else. Anywhere else. Though in truth you spent 40 minutes assembling this precise vision of not trying. And here's the punchline your future self would find hilarious. This shirt, this soft, cheap, second-hand flannel you're treating with such magnificent indifference, will one day be photographed, catalogued, and sold in a boutique for the price of a week's groceries, folded reverently under a light and labelled authentic vintage workwear. The very thing you wore to look like you didn't care will become something people care about enormously. The gospel of the flannel, it turns out, has a long and profitable afterlife. It's time to put on your jeans, and I hope you've cleared your schedule, because these are not so much trousers as they are wearable tents. The legs are so wide that when you walk, the denim flaps behind you like sad sails on a becalmed ship. You could fit a second person in the left leg alone. There is no functional reason for this. Your parents ask, quite reasonably, if you're planning to house refugees in there. You are not. You just think it looks cool, and honestly, that's the whole decade in one sentence. Getting into them is its own small adventure. You step in and the fabric simply keeps going, cascading down and pooling around your ankles in generous folds. There's so much material that the hems drag along the ground, fraying instantly, soaking up puddles, collecting the entire history of every floor you've walked across. By the end of a rainy day, the bottom 4 inches of each leg are damp, grey and quietly composting. You don't mind. Frayed, filthy hems are proof of authenticity, like tree rings for denim. The waist sits low, the crotch sits somewhere near your knees, and the overall effect is that of a person slowly being swallowed by their own clothing. Sitting down releases a soft avalanche of fabric. Standing up, you have to gather yourself, literally hauling the excess denim upward like you're wading out of a river. Stairs are a genuine hazard. You've tripped over your own trouser legs more times than you'll admit, doing an ungraceful little stumble that you play off as intentional every single time. And the width invites decoration. People write on these jeans in marker, patch them, fray them further on purpose, safety pin things to them. The vast expanse of denim is a canvas, and a canvas this large demands to be filled. Some of the truly committed wear jeans so enormous the fabric could sail a small boat, a style with a devoted following, and absolutely no practical upside. Ever worn trousers that arrive somewhere a full second after the rest of you? That's the target. There's a rebellion buried in all this excess if you squint. The generation before spent years in tight, careful, form-fitting clothes, everything nipped and painted on. So of course the response was to swing violently in the opposite direction and drown the entire body in fabric. It's the pendulum of fashion doing what it always does, overcorrecting with tremendous enthusiasm. You don't think about any of this while you're getting dressed, obviously. You just know that tight is over and vast is in, and you're here for the vastness. Practicality never enters the conversation. These jeans are hot in summer, they're heavy when wet, they cost more fabric and therefore more money, and they actively try to kill you on staircases. None of that matters. What matters is the silhouette, the flap, the sheer confident absurdity of a person moving through the world inside what appears to be a denim parachute. You feel unbothered. You feel free. You feel like your legs have been granted their own private apartment. So you hitch them up, cinch the belt and shuffle off into your day, leaving a faint drag mark on the carpet behind you. And here's the quiet joke waiting at the end of the timeline. Everyone will swear these jeans are gone forever, a mistake never to be repeated. Then, decades later, they'll come flapping right back, wider than ever, worn by kids who'll insist they thought of it first. Denim, like history, does not so much end as loop. Next up, the overalls, and the single most important decision you'll make all morning: which strap to leave undone. Buckling both straps like a functioning adult is out of the question. That's for farmers and toddlers. No, you let one strap hang loose down your back, dangling with the careless confidence of someone who has decided that gravity is a suggestion. It serves no purpose. It gets caught on doorknobs. It slaps you when you turn quickly. And yet the unbuckled strap is doing more social signalling than a resume ever could. Let's appreciate the garment itself first. Overalls are, at their core, a full-body sack of denim with a bib on the front and straps over the shoulders, invented so that people doing genuinely filthy work could keep their clothes attached to their bodies. Painters wore them. Railway workers wore them. Children wore them because children are essentially small destructive weather systems. And now, in this decade, you're wearing them to a shopping centre where the hardest labour you'll perform is deciding between two nearly identical soft pretzels. The one loose strap is everything, so let's dwell on it. When both straps are fastened, you look prepared, responsible, ready to varnish a fence. Unfasten one, and the whole message flips. Suddenly you're relaxed, off-duty. A person who wears workwear, ironically, which is a very specific kind of luxury. The dangling strap swings behind you as you walk, occasionally whacking you in the lower back. A small physical price for looking effortlessly unbothered. It's like leaving your top button undone to say you're at ease, except the button weighs as much as a small anchor. Underneath, you've got a striped long-sleeve shirt, or a baby tee, or nothing much at all if it's warm, because the overalls do most of the work. The bib pocket on the front holds absolutely nothing useful, though you'll pat it thoughtfully as if it might. Maybe a folded note. Maybe a single, ancient stick of gum, fossilised. The pocket exists to be a pocket, the way so much of this decade's clothing exists to gesture at function, while quietly refusing to perform any. There's a childlike joy to overalls that nobody quite acknowledges out loud. You wore these as a toddler. You'll wear them again now as a teenager or 20-something, and the shape hasn't changed a bit, which means part of the appeal is a kind of soft nostalgia, a return to the simplicity of an outfit that's basically one piece and requires no coordination. Ever put on a single garment and felt instantly gloriously free of decisions? That's the overall's secret gift. One item, done. The tyranny of matching defeated. Of course, there's a catch, and it's a big one, and anyone who's worn overalls knows exactly where this is going. The bathroom. The moment of truth. Because to answer nature's call, you must fully undress from the waist up, straps and all, leaving the top half of your outfit hanging around your ankles like a shed skin. It is undignified. It is time-consuming. It is the great humbling secret of the overall, the toll you pay for looking so casually cool the rest of the day. But you accept it, because that's the deal you've made. Comfort and style extracted a small awkward tax, and you paid it gladly. So you flip that one strap loose, let it dangle, and stride out into the world, a monument to workwear that has never once seen work. And somewhere, decades ahead, another young person will loosen that exact same strap for that exact same reason, and think with total sincerity that they invented the gesture. Here's a puzzle for you. You have a delicate, silky little slip dress, the kind of thing that looks like elegant lingerie, and you've decided the correct way to wear it is directly over a chunky white cotton t-shirt. Two garments that were designed by different people for entirely different purposes, now married forever in one confusing outfit. It's like wearing a ball gown over a hoodie. Somehow it works. Somehow it became iconic, and somehow, decades later, it'll come roaring back with the exact same t-shirt underneath, as if no time has passed at all. Let's take the slip dress on its own terms first. It's a thin, spaghetti-strapped sheath, usually in a satiny fabric that catches the light and slides cool against your skin. It comes in muted colours, a dusty lavender, a slate grey, a black so deep it looks liquid, often with a bit of lace trim at the neckline. On its own it's soft, sensual, a little grown-up, the kind of thing that suggests candlelight and quiet music. Worn alone, it's an evening. Worn over a t-shirt, it becomes an entirely different animal, because the t-shirt underneath changes the whole conversation. Suddenly the dress isn't delicate at all, it's casual, careless, thrown together. The soft satin sits over rugged cotton, the fragile straps rest on top of a sturdy crewneck collar, and the effect is a deliberate collision. It says you took something precious and refused to treat it as precious. You took something meant for the bedroom and wore it to the record store. There's a lovely defiance in it, a refusal to follow the instructions the garment came with. The genius, and it is a kind of accidental genius, is in the contrast of textures against your skin. The cotton is warm and matte and familiar. The slip is cool and slick and slightly foreign. Together they shouldn't harmonise, and yet the eye finds the clash pleasing, the way a sweet dish sometimes wants a pinch of salt. Ever put two things together that had no business being together and discovered they were perfect? This is that, rendered in fabric, worn out into the daylight without a second thought. There's a practical layer too, which is very much in keeping with the decade's habit of dressing down anything that dares to look formal. The t-shirt means you can wear the slip in the cold. It means you can wear it to school without an adult fainting. It softens the whole thing, makes it wearable every day, unbothered. The dress goes from special occasion to Tuesday afternoon, and that democratization, that stubborn refusal to save nice things for nice moments, is deeply, unmistakably of this era. And it isn't only the young rebels doing it. This is a look that crosses over, that shows up on musicians and actors and the people whose photographs teenagers pin to their walls. It becomes shorthand for a certain kind of cool, the effortless kind, the kind that pretends it rolled out of bed like this when in truth it was assembled with real care. That's the eternal trick of great style, of course, making enormous effort look like no effort at all, and the slip-over tee pulls it off beautifully. So you smooth the satin down over the cotton, adjust one strap and glance in the mirror at a combination that shouldn't make sense and absolutely does. You look soft and tough at once, dressed up and dressed down in a single breath. And here's the closer waiting patiently at the end of the timeline. This exact pairing, slip and t-shirt, will vanish and then return decades later, essentially unchanged. And a whole new generation will marvel at how clever they were to think of it. They weren't. You were, but you'd probably let them have it. Around your neck goes the choker, a tight little band that hugs your throat with the enthusiasm of a small decorative boa constrictor. If you're feeling fancy, it's the stretchy black plastic kind that looks like it was cut from a tattoo and stapled shut. It leaves a faint red line on your skin by evening, a gentle reminder that fashion and comfort signed a mutual restraining order sometime around 1992. You'll wear it to school, to the mall, to bed if you forget. And in 30 years, teenagers will buy the identical plastic choker and think they invented it. Let's examine the specimen in your hand. The most beloved of all is the tattoo choker, a stretchy black cord woven into a fine lattice, like a tiny fence for your neck, often with a little charm or ring dangling from the front. It has the exact texture of something that should not be worn against skin, a slightly rubbery, clingy quality, and yet millions wear it. There are velvet ones too, softer, more dramatic, and thin metal ones, and ribbon tied in a bow at the back, for those with a gothic streak and steady fingers. Putting it on is a small ritual. You settle it at the base of your throat, snug but not strangling, adjusting until it sits at precisely the right height, low enough to be casual, high enough to be a statement. Too loose and it slides around looking apologetic. Too tight, and you spend the day faintly aware of your own pulse. The sweet spot is narrow, both literally and figuratively, but when you find it, the whole outfit clicks into focus around that one dark line at your collarbone. Now, comfort. There isn't any, and everyone has quietly agreed not to mention this. The choker warms up against your skin, it catches on your hair, It presses a faint groove into your neck that lingers for an hour after you take it off. In summer, it's a small band of trapped heat. When you swallow, you feel it. It is, by any objective measure, a mildly unpleasant thing to wear all day. Ever worn something that gently reminds you of its presence with every single breath? The choker is a masterclass in exactly that, and you love it anyway. The appeal is hard to explain to anyone standing outside the moment, which is true of most fashion. But there's something about the choker that draws a firm little line, that frames the face, that turns the neck into a focal point. It looks tough and delicate at the same time. It pairs with everything, the flannel, the slip dress, the baby tee, threading a single consistent note of dark attitude through wildly different outfits. It's the cheap, tiny accessory that punches us enormously above its weight, and that efficiency is a huge part of the charm. It's also crucially affordable, which matters when you're young and broke and fashion is moving faster than your allowance. A pack of tattoo chokers costs almost nothing, comes in a rainbow of colours you'll never actually wear because black is the only correct answer, and lasts until the elastic finally surrenders. You lose them constantly. You find them in coat pockets, down the sides of car seats, at the bottom of bags, little dark loops surfacing months later like archaeological finds from your own recent past. So you snap it into place, tilt your chin, and admire the effect. That single confident stripe declaring that you have thoughts about music and possibly poetry. And here comes the punchline, riding in on the long, patient loop of time. This exact plastic choker, this cheapest of cheap accessories, will vanish into the landfill of forgotten trends and then reappear decades later on the necks of teenagers who will hold it up like a discovery, a brilliant new idea. It never was new. It was just resting, and it left a faint red mark on an entire generation before yours. Some mornings call for the shell suit, a full tracksuit made of a shiny, crinkly nylon fabric that announces your approach from roughly a block away. Every step you take produces a swishing, rustling symphony, like two plastic bags fighting inside a wind tunnel. The colours are chosen by someone who clearly hated the human eye, usually a violent teal fighting a hot pink to the death. It's not warm, it's not breathable, it's basically a wearable crisp packet. But you look fast just standing still, and that apparently is the goal. Let's talk about that fabric, because it's the whole experience. It's a thin, papery nylon with a plastic sheen, the kind of material that feels cool and slick and slightly clammy against your arms. It does not breathe. Wear it on a warm day and you become your own personal greenhouse, a light sweat forming inside a suit that has no interest in letting it escape. You are, essentially, marinating, and yet you wear it, because looking like a human sports car apparently outranks the ability to regulate your own temperature. The sound, though. Oh, the sound. This is the shell suit's true signature, more memorable than any colour. It swishes, constantly. Walk and the inner thighs rub together in a rhythmic shh that follows you everywhere like an overeager backing track. Raise your arm and the sleeve announces the movement. You cannot sneak anywhere in a shell suit. Stealth is off the table. You're a walking sound effect, and everyone in a 30-foot radius knows exactly where you are and roughly how fast you're moving. The colours deserve their own paragraph, because restraint was clearly considered and firmly rejected. Shell suits come in combinations that seem designed to be seen from orbit. Blocks of electric turquoise slammed against magenta, purple crashing into lime, geometric patterns that appear to have been generated by a malfunctioning television. Subtlety was not an option at the factory. The philosophy seems to have been that if a little colour is good, then a violent, clashing riot of colour must be spectacular. Ever owned an item of clothing that was legally required to come with a warning for the eyes? This is that. There's a wonderful contradiction baked into the shell suit, which is that it's athletic clothing worn by people with no intention of ever doing anything athletic. The whole design language screams motion, speed, the track, the gym, and it's worn to the shops, to a friend's house, to sit on a wall and do absolutely nothing for 3 hours. It's the uniform of leisure disguised as the uniform of exertion, and nobody involved feels even slightly troubled by the gap between the two. The full effect requires the matching top and bottom, worn together as a set, because a shell suit split up is just two lonely, confused garments. Together, they form a complete coordinated statement, a head-to-toe monument to synthetic optimism. You zip the jacket up to the chin, the collar standing stiff and proud, and you feel unstoppable. Aerodynamic, ready for a race you will never enter, and would lose immediately if you did. So you swish your way to the door, a symphony of nylon and confidence, leaving a trail of gentle rustling behind you. And here's the quiet joke at the far end of the timeline. This suit, so aggressively of its moment that it seems impossible to imagine anywhere else, will be mocked mercilessly for years, held up as the ultimate example of everything that went wrong. And then, right on schedule, the sheen and the swish and the eye-watering colours will come creeping back, ironically at first, then sincerely, because nothing this loud ever truly stays quiet for long. Time for the shoes, and today you're lacing up your Doc Martens, boots so heavy and solid that walking in them for the first week feels like a punishment invented by your ankle's worst enemy. The leather is stiff enough to deflect a small vehicle. They give you blisters shaped like continents. You bleed a little breaking them in, and you accept this as a fair trade. Because once they're broken in, you can stomp through the world with the quiet authority of someone whose footwear could double as a legal weapon. Pick one up and feel the weight of it. This is not a delicate shoe. This is an object with intent. The leather is thick. The sole is a chunky slab of air-cushioned rubber, and the whole thing feels less like something you wear and more like something you commission. The classic is the 8-eyelet boot in oxblood or black, the yellow stitching around the sole standing out like a signature. There are shorter ones and taller ones, but the spirit is always the same, sturdy, honest, faintly menacing. The breaking-in period is a genuine ordeal, and everyone who owns a pair has a war story. Fresh out of the box, the leather is unforgivingly rigid, and it attacks your heels and ankles with the enthusiasm of a personal grudge. The first week is a gauntlet of blisters, of walking gingerly, of peeling off a sock at night to survey the damage like a soldier after a long campaign. Ever suffered genuine physical injury purely for the sake of footwear that will eventually feel amazing? That's the Doc Marten initiation, and you pass it in blood. But then something happens. The leather softens. It moulds itself to the specific shape of your foot, remembering every step, becoming yours in a way that mass-produced things rarely do. The blisters heal. The stiffness gives way to a broken-in comfort that feels almost smug, and suddenly the boots that tortured you for a week become the most comfortable thing you own. They're worth the suffering, and the suffering, in hindsight, was part of the bond. And then there's the stomp. This is the real reward. A Doc Marten does not tiptoe. It lands. Each step connects with the ground with a solid, satisfying authority. And there's a psychological effect to that weight, a sense of being grounded, planted, difficult to push around. You walk differently in these boots, taller somehow, more deliberate. The stomp is a mood, a posture, a small daily declaration that you're not to be trifled with, even if you're just walking to a bus stop. The beautiful thing about these boots is how they refuse to belong to any one tribe. The punks wore them, the grunge kids wore them, the goths, the skinheads, the art students, the office rebels quietly untying them under their desks. All of them claim the same boot, each certain it belonged to their scene. A shoe that started life as sensible workwear for people on their feet all day became a symbol worn by half a dozen subcultures who agreed on almost nothing except this. That's a rare kind of unifying object. So you thread the long laces through all 8 eyelets, pull them tight, and knot them with the care of someone strapping in for something important. You stand, and the extra weight settles satisfyingly around your feet, and you feel ready. And here's the closer, waiting at the end like all the others. These boots outlast the trends that adopt them. Decade after decade, they simply keep going, breaking in fresh feet, drawing fresh blood, earning fresh loyalty, the same stubborn boot marching straight through every era that tries to declare it over. Or perhaps today is a platform day, in which case you'll be strapping into shoes with soles so thick you'll need a moment to acclimate to the altitude. We're talking several inches of chunky rubber or cork lifting you skyward, turning a simple walk to the bus stop into a genuine balance challenge. One wrong step off a curb and you're rolling an ankle in a way that'll haunt you for years. The Spice Girls made these famous, and an entire generation twisted their joints trying to keep up. It was a small price to pay for being tall and slightly terrified. Behold the platform, a shoe that has decided the ground is simply too far away, and resolved to fix the problem with brute force. The sole is a solid wedge, sometimes an inch, sometimes a truly reckless 5 or 6, made of rubber or cork or that light foamy material that somehow feels both weightless and enormous. Sneakers get platforms, sandals get platforms, boots get platforms. Nothing is safe from the upward pull of this trend, and once you've stood on the extra height, flat shoes feel almost insulting. Standing up in them for the first time is a peculiar sensation, a bit like being handed a new pair of legs that you haven't yet learned to operate. The world drops away slightly. You are taller, grander, floating a few inches above your ordinary self. There's a small thrill to it, a giddy sense of having gained altitude, immediately complicated by the dawning realization that you now have to actually walk, and walking, as it turns out, is where the trouble begins, because platforms and stability are old enemies. That thick sole may be tall, but it's rigid, which means your foot can't flex and roll the way it naturally wants to. You clomp rather than stride, planting each foot flat like a small robot. Stairs become a slow, careful negotiation, taken one deliberate step at a time while gripping the rail. And curbs. Oh, curbs are the enemy. The place where a moment of inattention meets several inches of unforgiving rubber and results in an ankle rolling with a sickening little lurch. Ever felt genuinely at risk of injury simply by standing up and moving forward? Platforms deliver that thrill for free, and yet the appeal is undeniable and easy to understand. Height is power. Height is presence. To rise several inches above your usual eye line changes how you feel and how you're seen, lengthens the leg, sharpens the posture, adds a swagger that flat shoes simply cannot supply. When the biggest pop stars in the world stomped across stages in towering platforms, an entire generation looked down at their own sensible flat shoes and felt, suddenly, tragically earthbound. The message was clear. Get up here, the air is better. There's a lovely absurdity to committing to a shoe that actively works against you, and part of the fun is that everyone knows the risk and takes it anyway. You accept that you will wobble. You accept that you will at some point stack it spectacularly in front of witnesses. You accept the twinge in your ankle and the careful gait and the genuine possibility of a fall, all in exchange for a few inches of borrowed grandeur. It's a bargain struck with your own joints, and youth signs the contract without reading it. So you buckle the straps, rise carefully to your new towering height, and take a wobbly experimental step across the bedroom floor, arms out slightly for balance like a novice on a tightrope. And here's the punchline, elevated and waiting. These shoes will be blamed for 1,000 twisted ankles and quietly retired, declared a hazard and a mistake. And then, sure as anything, the soles will start creeping upward again years later, thicker and taller than ever, and a new generation will rise up onto them, wobbling toward the same beautiful, ridiculous fall. Let's deal with your hair, which today means clipping approximately 40 tiny plastic butterflies into it at random intervals. Each one is a different candy colour, and together they turn your scalp into what looks like a garden being aggressively pollinated. They snag on everything. They fall out and appear in couch cushions for months afterward, like glitter's slightly larger cousin. There is no styling logic, no pattern, just the joyful chaos of a head that appears to be under insect attack. Your niece will do the exact same thing in the year 2022 and film it for the internet. These clips are marvels of cheap plastic engineering, tiny spring-loaded butterflies with little pincer jaws that snap shut on a section of hair. They come in enormous bags, dozens at a time, in every colour a factory could produce, translucent pastels and shiny brights, and a few with tiny glittery accents for the truly committed. They cost almost nothing, which is important, because you will lose most of them within the month and feel not a flicker of regret about it. The application is where the fun lives. There's no correct technique, no diagram, no method your mother can teach you. You simply take small twists of hair and clip a butterfly onto each one, scattering them across your head with cheerful disregard for symmetry. Some go along a half-up section, some dot the crown, some anchor tiny braids, the more the better. A restrained 3 butterflies looks accidental. 40 butterflies looks like a decision, a statement, a whole ecosystem taking up residence on your head. The look, when finished, is genuinely delightful and slightly unhinged. From across a room, your head appears to be hosting a small swarm, dozens of colourful wings catching the light every time you turn. It's playful in a way that a lot of this decade's fashion, for all its rebellion, secretly is. There's no toughness here, no attitude, just pure candy-coloured fun, an outfit for your head that seems designed to make people smile. Ever worn something so cheerful and silly that strangers couldn't help grinning at you? The butterfly clip is engineered for exactly that effect. There is, of course, a cost, and the cost is chaos. These clips snag mercilessly on everything. Brushes, jumpers, other people's jewellery, the seatbelt, your own fingers. Pull a sweater over your head and you'll rake half of them loose, sending tiny plastic butterflies pinging across the room to hide in places you won't find them for months. They lurk in couch cushions and coat pockets and the far corners of drawers, surfacing at random like small fossils, proof that you were here, that a butterfly phase occurred. They also, frankly, don't hold much hair. Their grip is more decorative than functional, a gentle suggestion to a strand rather than a firm command. Fine, silky hair slips right out of them over the course of an afternoon, so by evening your careful constellation has drifted into disorder. Butterflies clinging on at odd angles, some already lost to the day. But that gentle collapse is part of the charm too. The sense that the whole thing was always temporary, always a little bit doomed, always just for now. The scrunchie is a fascinating object because it exists in 2 states at once. Sometimes it holds your hair, more often it lives on your wrist, a soft fabric donut worn as a bracelet, a hair tie, and a personality statement all in one. You have them in every fabric imaginable. Velvet, satin, that scratchy metallic stuff that catches on everything. They cost almost nothing and multiply in your bedroom like rabbits. And decades later, someone will sell you the identical scrunchie for 8 times the price and call it a curated vintage find. Let's start with the anatomy, because it's more clever than it looks. A scrunchie is simply an elastic band wrapped in a generous tube of fabric, gathered so the material bunches and ripples around it. That extra fabric is the whole point. It's what makes the scrunchie soft, forgiving, and gentle on your hair, unlike the thin, vicious elastic bands that came before and snapped your strands like dry twigs. The scrunchie cradles your ponytail rather than strangling it, which is a small mercy your hair genuinely appreciates. But holding hair is almost a secondary function, because the scrunchie's true home is your wrist. This is where it spends most of its life, worn as a soft, squishy bangle, ready for deployment at a moment's notice, but mostly just existing there as decoration. You stack 2 or 3, mixing colours and textures, a velvet one against a satin one against something covered in tiny embroidered flowers. It's an accessory that pretends to be practical while doing almost no practical work, which is a very familiar theme by now. The fabrics are a whole world unto themselves. There's velvet, plush, and deep, and slightly regal. There's shiny satin that slips around and catches the light. There's the crinkly metallic kind that looks fantastic and snags on absolutely everything you own. There are floral prints, polka dots, neon brights, and scrunchies made from the same fabric as an outfit so you can match, if you're the sort of person who coordinates at that level of detail. Ever owned a single tiny accessory in 15 different versions, all of them somehow essential? The scrunchie invites exactly that kind of gentle hoarding. And hoard them you do, because they breed. You buy one, and somehow within weeks you have 11, scattered across your room like soft fabric tumbleweeds. They collect on doorknobs, on lamp bases, on the corner of a mirror, on every available wrist in the house. They vanish into laundry and reappear months later, faded and slightly matted, still perfectly usable. There is no such thing as owning just one scrunchie. In the same way, there's no such thing as one potato chip. The population only ever grows. Part of the appeal is how forgiving and easy the whole thing is. In a decade full of clothing that hurts, itches, restricts, or actively endangers your ankles, the scrunchie is a rare oasis of pure comfort. It doesn't dig in. It doesn't leave marks. It doesn't require breaking in or balancing on or suffering for. It just sits there, soft and cheerful, asking nothing of you, which in the context of everything else you're wearing today makes it feel almost suspiciously kind. So you slide 2 onto your wrist, snap one into a quick ponytail, and head out with a small, soft armoury of them ready for whatever the day demands. And here's the closer, cinched neatly at the end. This humblest of accessories, this cheap little fabric donut mocked for years as the very symbol of dated, uncool style, will loop right back around, sold in trendy shops for absurd prices, worn on the wrists of a generation who'll treat it like a bold new discovery. The scrunchie, like the ponytail it holds, was only ever waiting to be let back down. If you're a young man in this decade, your hair situation is dire and expensive. You've bleached the tips a shade of yellow that occurs nowhere in nature, then spiked the whole arrangement upward using enough gel to grease a small engine. The finished product is crunchy to the touch, catches the light like an oil slick, and does not move in a strong wind because it physically cannot. It's less a hairstyle and more a small architectural achievement. You'll look back at photos and physically wince, and yet somehow the frosted look keeps trying to come back. Let's begin with the bleach, because that's where the trouble starts. The idea is to lighten just the ends, the very tips of each spike, leaving the roots your natural colour for a two-tone effect that someone, somewhere, decided looked cool. In practice, achieving this at home involves a cap with holes, a small hook, and a great deal of pained yelping as you pull strands through and slather them in a chemical paste that smells like a swimming pool having a crisis. The results range from subtle to catastrophic, and you rarely get to choose which. The colour that emerges is rarely the icy platinum promised on the box. More often it's a brassy, defiant yellow, the shade of a highlighter that's given up, sitting proudly atop your darker roots. But you've committed now, so you embrace it. The two-tone spikes become your signature, a bold declaration visible from across any room, and you tell yourself it looks intentional, edgy, current, rather than like your head was dipped briefly in lemon custard. Now for the gel, and this is where the real engineering begins. To hold those tips in their upward-defying spikes, you need product, and you need a lot of it. You scoop out a generous dollop of hard-hold gel, work it through with your fingers, and sculpt each spike into position with the focused intensity of a craftsman. The goal is height, definition, and permanence. This hairstyle is not meant to move. It is meant to stand firm against wind, rain, and the passage of time itself. The texture of the finished product is genuinely remarkable, and not in a good way. Touch it and it's crunchy, stiff, faintly crackly, like the crust on a well-baked loaf. It makes a small sound if you tap it. It holds its exact shape for the entire day and well into the evening, unmoved by weather, activity, or the laws of physics. Ever built something on your own head so rigid that you could probably lean on it? The gelled spike is that. A helmet made of your own hair and roughly a quarter of a tub of product. There's a shine to it too, an unmistakable wet-look gloss that catches every light and photographs like an oil slick. Combined with the frosted tips, the overall effect is a head that appears simultaneously spiky, glossy, and faintly hazardous. It is a look of tremendous confidence, worn by young men who genuinely believed, with their whole hearts, that this was the pinnacle of male grooming. And in the moment, surrounded by others doing the exact same thing, who's to say they were wrong? So you spike the last stubborn tip into place, give the whole rigid structure an approving pat, and head out into a light breeze that doesn't dare disturb a single strand. And here's the closer, frosted and waiting. This look will become the great punchline of the era, the first thing anyone points to when mocking the decade, held up in old photographs with a horrified laugh, and yet, quietly, stubbornly, it keeps trying to come back, creeping into fashion again and again, because apparently the urge to bleach your tips and defy gravity never fully leaves the human heart. Some days you simply want to be seen from space, and for that there is neon, electric yellow, radioactive green, a pink so aggressive it seems to hum. You don't wear one neon item, that would be cowardly. You wear 3 at once, in a combination that makes people squint and reach instinctively for sunglasses. There's no subtlety to it, no restraint. It's the fashion equivalent of shouting. And in a strange way, that unapologetic loudness is exactly what a much later generation will find so appealing when the whole world has gone beige and quiet. Let's define our terms, because neon isn't just bright, it's a specific and militant kind of bright. These are fluorescent colours, dyes that seem to glow with their own internal light, drinking in the daylight and firing it back at your eyeballs with interest. Electric yellow, hot pink, a green that belongs on a warning sign, an orange that looks less like a colour and more like an alarm. Placed next to normal colours, they make everything around them look faded, apologetic, insufficiently alive. The garments come in every form. There are neon windbreakers, neon leggings, neon socks pulled up to the knee, neon sweatbands worn without any intention of breaking a sweat. There are shoelaces, hair ties, plastic sunglasses, whole t-shirts screaming a single fluorescent hue. And the crucial rule, the one that separates the timid from the committed, is that you never wear just one. A single neon item is a mistake. 3 neon items is a lifestyle. You layer them, clash them, pile them on until you become a small walking sunrise that hurts to look at directly. Wearing this much neon has genuine physical consequences for the people around you. Friends squint when you approach. Strangers do a small double take, their eyes struggling to focus. In bright sunlight the effect is almost aggressive. your outfit reflecting light with an enthusiasm that borders on hostile. Ever worn something so bright that people physically flinched and then pretended they hadn't? Neon delivers that reaction reliably, and rather than being embarrassed, you take it as a compliment. Being impossible to ignore is the entire objective. There's a logic to it, buried under all that fluorescent noise. This is a decade that fundamentally does not value blending in. Standing out, being loud, being seen, these are the goals, and nothing achieves them faster than a colour that appears to be plugged into the mains. Neon is confidence rendered as pigment. It's the fashion of a generation that would rather be too much than not enough. That finds the very idea of tasteful restraint faintly tragic. And it turns up everywhere, not just on the daring, but on the ordinary too. It bleeds into sportswear, into fitness gear, into the graphics on packaging, and the design of every fast food cup. The whole visual world of the decade seems dialed up to maximum saturation, as if someone found the brightness knob on reality and simply kept turning. To live in it is to be surrounded constantly by colours that refuse to sit quietly, and after a while your eyes adjust and beige starts to look like a kind of surrender. So you pull on the third clashing neon layer, glance in the mirror at a reflection that could probably guide ships to shore and stride out glowing like a human highlighter. And here's the closer, blazing away at the end. Neon will eventually be declared exhausting, retired in favour of muted tones and careful, tasteful palettes. And then, years later, when the world has gone quiet and grey and everyone's dressed like a pleasant fog, a new generation starved for colour will dig neon back out and wear it with joy, precisely because it refuses, absolutely refuses to whisper. Behold the Canadian tuxedo, the bold decision to wear a denim jacket over a denim shirt over denim jeans, all in slightly mismatched shades of blue. You're now a single, unbroken column of denim from collar to ankle, a walking monument to one very specific fabric. It's stiff, it doesn't breathe, and sitting down requires actual planning. But you feel unstoppable, like a cowboy who wandered into a mall and never left. Nobody questions it, because in 1994, questioning denim is simply not done. The genius, if we can call it that, is in the layering of near-identical fabric in almost but not quite matching tones. The jeans are a medium wash. The shirt is a slightly lighter wash. The jacket is a darker, stiffer wash with contrast stitching along every seam. Together they don't quite match, and that's fine, because the goal was never harmony. The goal was denim, in quantity, uninterrupted. A bold statement that you have chosen one fabric and intend to see it through to its logical extreme. Physically, wearing this much denim at once is a genuine experience. Denim is heavy. It's rigid, especially when new, holding its shape with an almost cardboard-like conviction. Wearing 3 layers of it means you move a little stiffly, like a figure in an old woodcut, your joints negotiating with fabric that has firm opinions about how far it's willing to bend. Raise your arms and the jacket resists. Reach for something and the shirt underneath pulls tight. You are, in a real sense, gently armoured. Sitting down deserves special mention because it requires forethought. All that stiff fabric bunches and folds at the hips and knees, and you have to lower yourself with a certain deliberateness, arranging the layers so they don't bind you in place. Ever worn an outfit so structurally rigid that ordinary movements needed a moment of planning? The full denim ensemble is that. A suit of soft blue armour that looks casual and behaves like plate mail. But you don't mind. There's something reassuring about being so thoroughly encased. And it doesn't breathe at all. 3 layers of tightly woven cotton twill trap heat with impressive efficiency. So on any day warmer than mild, you're quietly cooking inside your own denim fortress. Yet the look persists regardless of temperature, because the silhouette is the priority, and comfort, as we've established many times over, is not a consideration anyone here takes seriously. You'd rather be a warm cowboy than a comfortable civilian. The appeal, once you surrender to it, is a kind of rugged confidence. Denim carries associations of the frontier, of hard work and open roads and rebellion, of rock stars and cowboys and people who don't answer to anyone. Wearing it head to toe wraps you in all of that mythology at once, turns an ordinary trip to the shops into something faintly heroic. You catch your reflection, and you don't see a teenager in too much fabric. You see an outlaw, a drifter, a person with a squint and a past. So you shrug the jacket on over the shirt over the jeans, adjust the collar, and stride out clad head to toe in blue, stiff and warm and magnificent. And here's the closer, stitched in at the seam. The full denim look will be laughed at, nicknamed and mocked, declared a crime against coordination for years on end. And then, inevitably, it'll come striding back, worn seriously by models and pop stars and kids who consider it the height of effortless cool. Denim, like the cowboys who wore it first, simply refuses to ride off into the sunset for good. While your jeans are busy being enormous, your top has gone in the entirely opposite direction. The baby tee is a t-shirt that appears to have been washed in scalding water and then given to a much smaller person, cropped short and clinging tight. It usually features a tiny slogan, a cartoon character, or a brand name across the chest in glittery letters. The contrast is the whole point, a shirt that ends at your ribcage sitting above jeans wide enough to hide furniture. Balance was never the goal, extremes were. Let's look at the shirt itself. The baby tee is small in every dimension, short in the body, tight in the fit, with little cap sleeves that barely make it past the shoulder. It's made of thin, stretchy cotton that hugs close, the exact opposite of the loose, oversized shirts that dominate elsewhere in the decade. Where the flannel and the hip-hop jerseys drown the body in fabric, the baby tee does the reverse, using as little material as it can possibly get away with. The graphics are half the appeal, and they follow their own peculiar rules. There's usually something printed across the chest, a tiny cartoon character, an ironic slogan, a brand logo rendered in glittery or fuzzy iron-on letters. Sometimes it's a band. Sometimes it's a single cheeky word. Sometimes it's the name of a place you've never been, or a phrase that means nothing at all but looks appealing in that particular font. The smaller and more knowing the graphic, the better. But the real magic of the baby tee is entirely in the contrast, and this is where it becomes a masterpiece of the decade's love affair with extremes. On its own, a small tight shirt is just a small tight shirt. Paired with those enormous flapping jeans, though, it becomes something else. The top half of a silhouette so exaggerated it borders on cartoonish. Tiny up top, vast down below. Ever assembled an outfit whose two halves seem to belong to two entirely different people. That deliberate mismatch is the baby tee's whole reason for being. There's a real intentionality behind that clash, whether or not anyone wearing it could articulate it. The decade adores opposites slammed together, softness against toughness, formal against casual, delicate against sturdy. The baby tee and the wide jeans are simply that instinct applied to proportion, small fighting large in a single outfit. And somehow the collision reads as cool rather than confused. When both halves commit fully to their extreme, the whole thing snaps into a look that feels deliberate and sharp. It's also conveniently cheap and easy, which never hurts. A baby tee costs little, layers under a flannel or a slip dress or an unbuttoned shirt, and pairs with essentially everything in the overstuffed closet. It's a workhorse disguised as a statement piece, the small, reliable centre around which louder garments can orbit. On a day when the rest of the outfit is doing a great deal of shouting, The baby tee is the quiet, confident anchor holding it all together. So you tug the little shirt down over your ribs, admire the glittery slogan in the mirror, and head out with your tiny top perched above your enormous jeans like the punchline to a visual joke. And here's the closer, printed small across the chest. The baby tee will fade out, dismissed as a relic, too small and too silly for the looser years that follow. And then, right on cue, it'll shrink its way back into fashion, cropped and tight and covered in ironic slogans, worn by a generation who'll insist sincerely that they thought of it first. In fashion, apparently, everything old is eventually made small again. On your head goes the bucket hat, a floppy, brimmed circle of fabric that offers questionable sun protection and even more questionable style credibility. It comes in corduroy, in denim, in a camouflage print that fools absolutely no one. It flattens your hair, it blows off in the slightest breeze, and it makes everyone look faintly like a fisherman who took a wrong turn. And yet, you love it. It's the great equalizer of headwear, and like all the best terrible ideas of this decade, it will be back before you know it. The bucket hat is a marvel of simplicity, which is part of its charm. It's a soft, round-crowned hat with a downward-sloping brim that runs all the way around, giving it the vague shape of an upside-down bucket, hence the name that nobody has ever managed to improve upon. There's no structure to it, no stiffening, no shape it insists on holding. It flops, it squashes. You can fold it, stuff it in a pocket, sit on it, and it emerges essentially unbothered, ready to flop again. The materials tell you a lot about the decade's priorities. There's corduroy, ribbed and soft. There's denim, to match the rest of the aggressively denim outfit. There's terry cloth, the same stuff as a towel, which makes no sense and is worn anyway. And there's camouflage, the print that's supposed to help you blend into a forest, but is here paired with neon and worn to a shopping centre, fooling precisely no one and blending into precisely nothing. Ever worn camouflage in an environment with no natural cover whatsoever? The bucket hat cheerfully embraces the contradiction. Let's be honest about what it does to your appearance, because the bucket hat is not universally flattering, and everyone knows it. It flattens your carefully arranged hair into a sad ring. It sits low, casting a shadow, and gives even the coolest person a faint air of having gotten lost on a fishing trip. There's something inescapably goofy about it, a softness that undercuts any attempt at looking tough or edgy. And that goofiness, strangely, is exactly why people love it. Because the bucket hat is the great equalizer of headwear. It doesn't care who you are or how cool you're trying to be. It humbles everyone equally, drapes the same faintly absurd charm over the popular kid and the shy one alike. There's a democratic silliness to it, a refusal to take itself or you seriously, and in a decade otherwise so obsessed with attitude and statement. That lightness is genuinely refreshing. Putting one on is like admitting cheerfully that you're not above looking a little ridiculous. It's also practical, sort of, in theory. It keeps a bit of sun off your face and a bit of rain off your head, provided the wind cooperates, which it rarely does. The lightest breeze lifts the floppy brim and sends the whole hat tumbling off down the street, forcing you into an undignified chase. So its protection is conditional, its dignity is non-existent, and its style credibility is deeply questionable. And still, you reach for it, again and again, because it's easy and fun and quietly perfect, so you jam it down over your flattened hair, adjust the floppy brim, and head out looking cheerfully like you've wandered away from a trawler. And here's the closer, flopping in right on schedule. The bucket hat will be retired, mocked, filed away as one of the decade's sillier ideas, and then, sure as the tide, it'll wash right back up onto a new generation's heads, in corduroy and denim and pointless camouflage, worn with total sincerity by kids who think it's brand new. Some hats, like some fishermen, always come back to shore. Around your waist, or slung diagonally across your chest if you're feeling adventurous, sits the fanny pack. It's a small zippered pouch on a strap, and it holds your keys, your lip balm, and a folded $5 bill. It is deeply practical and deeply uncool at exactly the same time, a contradiction it wears with pride. Your parents call it sensible, you call it a look. Decades from now it'll be rebranded with a French-sounding name and cost a small fortune, but tonight it's just a bag that lives on your hips. Let's appreciate the design, which is honestly quite sensible, a fact that will haunt its reputation for years. It's a small padded pouch with 1 or 2 zippered compartments, attached to an adjustable strap with a plastic clip buckle. You fasten it around your waist and the pouch sits at the front, or you spin it to the back, or you sling it across your body if you're the daring sort. Your hands are free. Your valuables are secure. It is, by any reasonable measure, a smart way to carry your things, and that's precisely the problem, because being sensible has never been a fast track to being cool. The fanny pack radiates a certain practicality that clashes with the whole spirit of an era built on impractical excess. It's the bag your dad wears on holiday. It's the bag handed out at conferences. It has an unmistakable whiff of the responsible adult about it, and for a while that association nearly sinks it entirely, marking its wearer as someone who prioritizes function over flair, the gravest of sins. But something interesting happens, which is that the fanny pack gets adopted anyway, reclaimed by people who wear it with enough confidence to override its dorky reputation. Worn slung low on the hips, or across the chest at a jaunty angle, in bright colours or bold prints, it starts to read less like sensible luggage and more like a deliberate choice. Ever taken something deeply uncool and worn it so confidently that people started to wonder if they were the ones who'd got it wrong? The fanny pack survives on exactly that kind of nerve. The contents are gloriously modest. There's not much room in there, so you carry only the essentials: your keys, a lip balm, a few coins, a folded bill, maybe a single stick of gum keeping the ancient one in your cargo pants company. It's a bag that forces a kind of minimalism, whether you wanted it or not, holding just enough to get you through an afternoon and nothing more. There's a strange freedom in that constraint, in leaving the house carrying almost nothing. There's also the buckle, which deserves a mention, because clicking that plastic clasp shut around your waist has a satisfying finality to it. A little snap that says you're ready, equipped, hands-free, prepared for the day. You pat the pouch to confirm everything's inside. You spin it to the position you prefer, and off you go, unburdened by a proper bag, your small kingdom of essentials riding securely on your hip like a loyal companion. So you clip it on, give it a confident pat, and head out with your worldly essentials strapped snugly to your midsection. And here's the closer, zipped up tight at the end. The fanny pack will be mocked ruthlessly, exiled as the very symbol of trying too hard to be practical. And then, decades on, it'll return in triumph, rebranded with a fancy foreign-sounding name, made in fine materials, sold for astonishing prices, and slung across the chest of the most fashionable people alive. The bag your parents called sensible will one day cost more than their whole holiday. History, like the strap, comes right back around. Let's accessorise, which in this decade means burying your hands and neck in plastic. There are chunky beaded bracelets, a mood ring that claims to read your emotions but mostly just reads room temperature, and a string of puka shells around your neck suggesting a beach you've never actually visited. None of it is expensive. All of it clacks when you move. Your mood ring turns a murky brown and insists you're stressed, which, given the outfit you've assembled this morning, is not entirely wrong. Start with the bracelets, which travel in packs. You don't wear one, you wear a dozen, stacked up your forearm in a riot of colours and materials, chunky plastic beads and thin metal bangles and stretchy elastic strings of tiny shapes. They shift and clatter every time you move your arm, providing a constant soft percussion to your day, a jangling soundtrack that announces every gesture. Rest your arm on a desk and they cascade down with a clack. Raise your hand and they slide back with another. You are, in a small way, always making noise. Then there's the mood ring, a genuine marvel of pseudoscience that everyone knows doesn't work and everyone loves anyway. It contains a liquid crystal that changes colour with temperature, which the ring's packaging cheerfully insists corresponds to your emotional state. Blue means calm, green means average, black means stressed or cold, which are apparently the same thing. You check it constantly throughout the day, watching it shift, pretending to believe it's reading your soul rather than simply reporting how warm your finger is. The mood ring's readings are, of course, comically unreliable, and this is a big part of the fun. It turns a murky brownish colour and declares you anxious. It goes black in a cold classroom and diagnoses you with despair. It flickers between shades as you hold a warm drink, apparently registering a series of dramatic emotional swings you're not actually experiencing. Ever consulted a piece of jewellery about your own feelings and then argued with its conclusion? The mood ring invites exactly that kind of cheerful, one-sided relationship. And around your neck, the puka shells, a string of small white shell beads worn tight at the throat, suggesting sun, surf, and a laid-back coastal life. The catch, for most people wearing them, is that they've never so much as visited the beach in question. The puka shell necklace is aspirational, a little wearable postcard from a vacation that never happened, worn earnestly by people whose nearest ocean is several states and one long car journey away. Nobody minds the fiction. That's what an accessory is for. None of this costs much, which is central to the whole enterprise. Plastic jewellery is cheap, disposable, bought on a whim, and lost without grief. You accumulate it in drawers, in bowls, tangled in knots at the bottom of bags, a treasure hoard of items each worth almost nothing but collectively forming a huge part of your look. The low stakes are freeing. You can pile on 20 pieces without a second thought, mix and clash with abandon, because nothing here is precious and everything is fun. So you stack the bracelets, slide on the mood ring, fasten the puka shells, and head out clacking and jangling and glowing a colour your ring insists means you're stressed. And here's the closer, strung neatly at the end. All this cheap plastic, this disposable throwaway ornament, will be swept aside as childish clutter for years. And then it'll come clacking right back. The beads, the mood rings, the puka shells, sold once more to a generation who'll wear them with the same earnest joy, still pretending the ring reads their heart and the shells came from a beach they've actually seen. Somewhere along the way, fashion decided the most stylish thing you could possibly do was wear the brand name across your chest in letters visible from orbit. Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren, the bigger the logo, the better. You're essentially a walking billboard, paying the company for the privilege of advertising them. It's a strange arrangement when you think about it too hard, so nobody does. You just want the name on the shirt loud and unmissable, so everyone knows exactly how much you spent looking casual. The logo, in this decade, is not a discreet little tag tucked at the hem. It is the entire point of the garment, blazoned enormous across the front, spelled out in bold block letters, stitched in contrasting colours, impossible to miss from any reasonable distance. The clothing itself, the cut, the fabric, the fit, is almost secondary. What matters is the name, displayed prominently, announcing to everyone in eyeshot exactly which brand you've chosen to align yourself with today. There's a clear hierarchy at work, and everyone understands the rules without anyone ever writing them down. Certain names carry weight, certain logos confer status, and wearing them is a way of broadcasting taste, aspiration, and, not least, spending power. A plain sweatshirt is just a sweatshirt. The same sweatshirt with a large recognizable logo across the chest is a status symbol, a membership card, a small flag planted in the endless competition of who belongs to what. The fabric didn't change. The name did all the work. If you stop and examine the arrangement honestly, it's genuinely peculiar. You have paid money, often quite a lot of money, for the privilege of advertising a company on your own body, turning yourself into unpaid billboard space that you funded yourself. The company should by rights be paying you. Instead, you pay them and thank them and feel proud. Ever handed over your own cash for the honour of promoting a corporation across your chest all day? Logomania runs on exactly that cheerful upside-down logic, and questioning it too closely spoils the fun. So nobody questions it, because the appeal underneath is real and human. Wearing a recognised name is a shortcut to belonging, a way of signalling that you're part of something, that you know what's good and can afford a piece of it. In the tangled social world of school hallways and shopping centres, that instant recognition matters. The logo does the talking so you don't have to. It says, at a glance, here is a person with the right taste and the means to indulge it. It also, conveniently, takes the guesswork out of looking put together. You don't need a sophisticated eye or a carefully cultivated sense of style. You just need the right name across the chest, and the logo supplies the credibility all on its own. It's fashion as a kind of shorthand. Style you can purchase directly and wear immediately. No personal taste required. For a lot of people, that ease is a genuine relief, a way to feel current without the exhausting work of actually being original. So you pull on the shirt with the enormous name across the front, admire how unmistakable it is in the mirror, and head out advertising a company that has never sent you a single cent. And here's the closer, printed large enough to read from space. This obsession with giant logos will be dismissed as garish, tacky, a symbol of caring more about labels than style. And then, right on time, the big bold logo will come roaring back, splashed across chests once more, worn by a generation happy to become walking billboards all over again, because the deep human wish to be seen belonging never really goes out of fashion. The bomber jacket is your armour for the day, a padded elastic-cuffed jacket that makes your torso look faintly like a marshmallow. The truly special ones are reversible, satin on one side, a completely different colour on the other, so you can flip it inside out and pretend you own two jackets. It's warm, it's shiny, it makes a soft whumping sound when you sit down, and it will spend the next 30 years quietly refusing to go out of style, patiently waiting for its inevitable comeback. Let's start with the shape, because the bomber has a very distinctive silhouette. It's cropped short, ending right at the waist, with a ribbed elastic band around the hem and matching ribbed cuffs at the wrists. That elastic gathers everything in, so the body of the jacket puffs out in the middle, giving you a rounded, padded torso that sits somewhere between cosy and inflated. Zip it up and you take on the general shape of a well-insulated marshmallow, which is not the most flattering comparison, but there it is. The fabric is usually a slick nylon or satin with a subtle sheen, catching the light as you move. It comes in every colour imaginable, deep greens and blacks that nod to its military origins, but also bold brights, jewel tones, and combinations that were never issued to any Air Force in history. The material has a smooth, almost liquid quality to it, and it produces a soft rustling whump when you sit down or fold your arms, a gentle sound that becomes part of wearing it. The reversible ones are where things get genuinely exciting, and this is the feature that elevates the bomber from jacket to small daily magic trick. A reversible bomber has a completely different colour or pattern on the inside, so you can turn the whole thing inside out and wear what appears to be an entirely different jacket. Border the green, flip it, and now it's orange. 2 jackets for the price of 1, or at least the convincing illusion of 2, which for a teenager on a budget is a genuine thrill. Ever owned one item that could transform into a second item just by turning it inside out? The reversible bomber makes you feel briefly, wonderfully rich. There's a satisfying practicality to it too, which is rare in this decade of impractical excess. The bomber is actually warm. That padding does its job, the elastic cuffs and hems seal out the wind, and the shortcut means it layers over almost anything without adding bulk to your legs. It's a jacket that genuinely works, that keeps you comfortable while still looking sharp, a small oasis of function in a wardrobe otherwise devoted to suffering for style. Its roots give it a certain borrowed toughness as well. The bomber began as genuine flight gear, worn by pilots in cold cockpits, and a faint echo of that heritage clings to it still. Wearing one wraps you in a vague sense of adventure and grit, of speed and sky and daring, even as you wear it to do nothing more daring than catch a bus. That mix of real practicality and borrowed swagger is a large part of why the bomber endures where flashier things fade. So you zip it up, flip it once to admire the other colour, then flip it back and head out padded and shiny and armoured against the wind. And here's the closer, cuffed neatly at the end. Unlike so much of the decade's wardrobe, the bomber will never really leave. It'll drift in and out of the spotlight, but it never fully disappears, quietly persisting through every era, reversible and warm and endlessly adaptable, waiting patiently for each new generation to rediscover that some good ideas, unlike frosted tips, simply don't need saving from themselves. Slide into a pair of corduroy trousers, and you'll immediately understand the defining feature of this fabric, the sound. Corduroy makes a soft, rhythmic zip, zip, zip as your thighs brush together with every step, a private soundtrack that follows you everywhere. It comes in earthy browns, mustards, and a burnt orange that suggests autumn even in July. It's warm, it's textured, and it wears down at the knees into shiny bald patches. It's the most 1970s thing to survive into the 90s, which makes its later revival a genuinely dizzying loop of time. Let's examine the fabric itself, because corduroy is unlike anything else in your closet. It's woven with raised parallel ridges, called wales, running the length of the material, so the surface has a soft, ribbed texture you can feel with a fingertip. Run your hand one way, and it's smooth. Run it the other, and it resists, plush and slightly furry. There are wide wale versions, chunky and bold, and fine wale versions, subtler and softer, and connoisseurs have firm opinions about which is superior, opinions nobody asked for but everyone shares anyway. The colours are pure autumn, regardless of the actual season. Corduroy comes in warm, earthy tones, browns and tans and rusts, mustard yellows and burnt oranges and deep forest greens. There's something inherently cosy and slightly retro about the palette. Colours that seem borrowed from a decade earlier and never quite returned. Wearing corduroy in the middle of summer means dressing your legs for a crisp October afternoon while the rest of you sweats. But the fabric doesn't care what month it is, and neither apparently do you. But the sound is the thing, the unmistakable signature that no other fabric can claim. As you walk, your inner thighs brush together and the ridges of the corduroy catch against one another, producing that soft rhythmic zip, zip, zip with every stride. It's quiet but constant, a gentle private soundtrack that accompanies your every movement. In a silent room, you can hear yourself approaching. Ever been audibly announced by your own trousers, one soft swish at a time. Corduroy makes stealth impossible, and somehow makes you feel cozier for it. The fabric is warm, genuinely warm, that ribbed texture trapping heat with real efficiency. This makes it wonderful in cold weather, and a slow cooking mistake in the heat, but warmth is part of its comforting appeal. There's a softness to corduroy, a broken-in gentleness that feels less like fashion and more like being wrapped in something reassuring. It's the fabric equivalent of a warm drink, unglamorous and deeply comforting, and you reach for it on days when the world feels like it needs softening. It does have one tragic flaw, which is how it wears. Corduroy's raised ridges take the friction of daily life right on their tips, so the high contact areas, the knees, the seat, wear down over time into smooth, shiny bald patches where the plush texture has been rubbed flat. It's a slow, visible aging, each pair of trousers gradually recording where you sit and kneel and move. Some find it shabby, others find it characterful, proof of a garment well and truly lived in. Either way, corduroy tells on you. So you pull on the trousers, feel the soft ridges settle against your legs, and set off zipping down the hall in warm autumnal defiance of the calendar. And here's the closer, woven in along the wale. Corduroy will be filed away as fusty, old-fashioned, the fabric of grandfathers and geography teachers, and then, in the great dizzying loop of taste, it'll come swishing right back into fashion, plush and warm and earthy, worn by a generation who'll find its retro softness thrillingly new. A fabric that already felt like a throwback in the 90s, thrown back yet again. Time, like corduroy, just keeps going in ribbed little lines. Today calls for velvet, that plush, deep, faintly regal fabric that makes you look like you're headed either to a poetry reading or a vampire's dinner party. If not velvet, then velour, its softer, sportier cousin, most famously in the form of a matching tracksuit that feels like wearing a very expensive towel. You stroke your own sleeve absent-mindedly all day because you cannot help it. It's tactile, it's dramatic, it's a little bit much. And being a little bit much is once again entirely the point. Let's begin with velvet, the grander of the two. Velvet has a dense, short pile that catches light in a way no other fabric quite manages, appearing lighter or darker depending on the angle, shifting subtly as you move. It comes in deep, saturated colours, wine reds, midnight blues, forest greens, blacks with a faint sheen, all of them rich and moody and dramatic. There's a whiff of the theatrical about velvet, a sense of old drawing rooms and stage curtains and candlelight, and wearing it lends you a little of that borrowed grandeur. That drama is exactly why people reach for it. A velvet shirt or dress or blazer turns an ordinary outfit into something with a story, something slightly gothic, slightly romantic, slightly like you might, at any moment, recite poetry or attend a séance. It's not a subtle fabric. It announces itself. In a decade that adores excess, velvet fits right in, a texture that refuses to be casual, that insists on being noticed, that makes even a trip to the shops feel faintly like an occasion. Then there's velour, velvet's relaxed, sporty cousin, and the two should not be confused, though they often are. Velour has a similar soft pile, but a stretchier, more forgiving construction, and its natural home is casual wear. The great velour icon of the era is the matching tracksuit, a zip-up top and drawstring bottoms in the same plush fabric, usually in a bright or pastel shade, worn as loungewear that somehow became streetwear. Slipping into one feels less like getting dressed and more like being gently upholstered. The defining experience of both fabrics is entirely tactile, and it's a compulsion nobody warns you about. Velvet and velour are irresistibly strokable, so soft and pleasant to the touch that you find yourself absent-mindedly petting your own sleeve throughout the day, running a thumb along a cuff, smoothing a hand down a thigh. Ever caught yourself repeatedly stroking your own outfit like it was a small, contented animal? Velvet and velour turn everyone into that person, endlessly fussing at their own plush surfaces for the simple pleasure of it. There's a comfort to velour especially, a cosy indulgence, the sense of wearing something luxurious and easy at the same time. The velour tracksuit in particular threads a strange needle, feeling expensive and pampering while being, in practice, the softest possible way to leave the house having made almost no effort. It's loungewear that dares to be seen in public, comfort masquerading as glamour, and the disguise is convincing enough that nobody calls the bluff. So you slip into the velvet, or zip up the velour, feel the soft pile settle plush against your skin, and head out already petting your own sleeve. And here's the closer, brush smooth against the nap. These fabrics, so dramatic and so cosy, will fade from fashion, dismissed as overdone, too much, a bit silly. And then, inevitably, the plush will return, the velvet blazers and the velour tracksuits creeping back into style, worn by a generation who'll stroke their own sleeves in exactly the same helpless way. Some textures, once felt, are simply impossible for people to leave alone for good. Cargo pants present you with more storage than you could ever conceivably need. Pockets stacked upon pockets running down each leg like a filing cabinet you can wear. In theory, these hold tools, supplies, the essentials of a rugged outdoor life. In practice, they hold a single stick of gum and a crumpled receipt, while the other 11 pockets remain gloriously, defiantly empty. You forget which pocket has your keys and pat yourself down like you're being frisked. But you feel prepared for anything, and that illusion is worth every unnecessary flap. Let's count the pockets, or at least attempt to, because the exact number seems to vary and multiply the longer you look. There are the standard front and back pockets, of course, and then the cargo pockets proper, those large flapped pouches on the outside of each thigh, big enough to hold a paperback or a sandwich. But it rarely stops there. There are smaller pockets stitched onto the big pockets, pen slots on the calf, a mysterious zip compartment near the knee. The whole garment is an exercise in pocket abundance taken well past the point of sense. The design comes from genuinely practical origins, which makes its civilian use all the more absurd. Cargo pants were built for soldiers and workers who actually needed to carry equipment, tools, ammunition, supplies, distributed across the body for balance and access. Every pocket had a purpose. Every flap protected something important. The design is smart, functional, thoroughly considered. And then it was handed to teenagers who carry, on an average day, almost nothing, and the elaborate storage system found itself gloriously unemployed. Because in practice, the pockets sit empty. You've got a stick of gum in one, a crumpled receipt in another, maybe a few coins jingling somewhere near your knee. The vast majority of that carefully engineered storage capacity goes completely unused, flapping emptily as you walk, a filing system for a life that generates no files. Ever worn a garment engineered to carry a soldier's kit while carrying personally one lip balm and a bus ticket? Cargo pants offer that gap between capacity and need, and wear it as a badge of readiness for adventures that never come. The many pockets do create one genuine recurring problem, which is that you can never remember where you put anything. Reaching for your keys becomes a full-body search, patting down thigh after thigh, unzipping compartments at random, checking the same pocket 3 times because surely it's in there somewhere. From the outside, you appear to be frisking yourself with mounting concern. The very abundance of storage that felt so appealing becomes a small daily maze, your possessions scattered across a dozen identical hiding places. And yet, the appeal survives every fruitless search, because cargo pants make you feel prepared. There's a psychological comfort in all that capacity, a sense that you could carry anything, meet any situation, produce exactly the right item, from exactly the right pocket, if only you could remember which one. You feel equipped, capable, ready for a rugged and eventful life, even as you shuffle to a friend's house carrying nothing more demanding than a house key. The readiness is imaginary. The feeling is entirely real. So you pull them on, pat down a few pockets to confirm they're as empty as ever, and head out feeling equipped for an expedition you have no intention of taking. And here's the closer, tucked away in a pocket you'll never check. Cargo pants will be declared bulky, dated, tragically over-pocketed, and quietly retired for years. And then, right on schedule, they'll come flapping back into fashion, pockets and all, worn by a generation who'll fill them with just as little and feel just as prepared. The pockets, like the trend, were always mostly for show. Perched on the very tip of your nose sit sunglasses so small they've stopped even pretending to block the sun. The lenses are barely larger than postage stamps, tinted a moody blue or a rebellious orange, and they cover perhaps a third of your actual eyes. You spend the entire day squinting into the light, functionally blinded, but you look effortlessly cool doing it. Practicality left the building years ago. What remains is pure attitude, balanced precariously on the bridge of your nose, one sneeze away from disaster. Let's establish just how small these are, because the smallness is the entire point. The lenses are tiny, sometimes barely bigger than a coin, set in thin wire or slim plastic frames that seem almost apologetic about their own existence. They perch high on the nose or slide down to the tip, leaving most of your face and crucially most of your eyes completely exposed to the elements. A normal pair of sunglasses covers the eyes. These merely gesture in the eye's general direction and leave the rest to fate. The tints are chosen for mood rather than function, which tells you everything about their priorities. There are blue lenses, orange lenses, purple, yellow, rose, a whole rainbow of coloured tints that cast the world in a stylish hue, while doing very little to actually reduce glare. They look fantastic. They photograph beautifully. They lend your whole face a shot of cool, detached attitude. And they let a great deal of bright sunlight straight through, which brings us to the central, unavoidable problem with the entire enterprise. Because these sunglasses do not in any meaningful sense block the sun. The lenses are too small and too pale to shade your eyes properly, so you spend the entire day squinting against light the glasses were nominally supposed to stop. You wander around in a state of glamorous partial blindness, eyes narrowed to slits beneath frames that are pure decoration. Ever-worn sunglasses that made the sun harder to deal with rather than easier? Tiny sunglasses achieve exactly that, sacrificing every ounce of function on the altar of looking cool. And they look cool, that much is undeniable, which is the only reason anyone tolerates the squinting. There's an attitude to tiny sunglasses, a knowing, slightly aloof quality, the look of someone too effortlessly stylish to be bothered with anything as pedestrian as adequate eye protection. Worn low on the nose, they let you peer over the top with a raised eyebrow, half hidden and half revealed, which is its own kind of power. The whole point is the posture, the cool detachment, the sense that you have priorities and comfort is not among them. They're also, being so small and perched so precariously, in constant danger of falling off entirely. Balanced on the tip of your nose, they slip at the slightest movement, sliding down, threatening to tumble with every step, every laugh, every ill-timed sneeze. You're forever pushing them back up with a fingertip, resettling them into position, negotiating a delicate, ongoing truce between your face and gravity. It's a lot of maintenance for eyewear that isn't even doing its one job, but you keep them up there anyway, squinting and adjusting and looking undeniably the part. So you slide them onto the tip of your nose, peer stylishly over the top, and head out into a brightness they will do absolutely nothing to soften. And here's the closer, balanced right on the edge. These tiny, useless, beautiful sunglasses will be mocked as impractical nonsense and grow, over the years, into large, sensible lenses that actually work. And then, sure as the sun they fail to block, the frames will shrink again, right back down to postage stamps, perched on the noses of a new generation squinting cheerfully into the glare. In fashion, function is optional, but attitude is forever. Slip on a pair of Vans and join the skate crowd, where the highest compliment your shoes can receive is that they look absolutely destroyed. The canvas is scuffed, the soles are peeling, the laces are frayed to threads, and all of this is desirable. A brand new clean pair marks you instantly as an outsider who hasn't earned their wear and tear, so you scuff them on purpose, dragging your feet, courting the beautiful decay. It's the first hint of a much bigger idea, that looking worn out on purpose could one day become the entire industry. Let's look at the shoe first, because Vans are gloriously simple. They're flat canvas sneakers with a waffle pattern rubber sole, the classic being a low slip-on or a lace-up with a side stripe, in solid colours or checkerboard prints. There's nothing high-tech about them, no cushioning systems, no engineering, just canvas and rubber and a flat sole built to grip a skateboard's grip tape. That simplicity is central to their appeal. They're honest shoes, unpretentious, built for a purpose and worn hard in pursuit of it. And worn hard they are, because these shoes live a brutal life. Skateboarding destroys footwear, dragging the canvas across rough grip tape, scuffing the toes against the ground, wearing holes through the sides and peeling the soles loose. A skater's shoes take a beating that would horrify anyone who values a pristine sneaker. But here's where it gets interesting, because that damage isn't a flaw to be hidden. It's a badge of honour, visible proof of hours spent actually skating, and it's precisely the look everyone wants. This flips the entire usual logic of shoes on its head. Normally new and clean is desirable, and worn out means it's time for a replacement. In the skate world, the opposite is true. Fresh, spotless Vans mark you as a poser, someone who bought the look without living it, whose shoes have never touched a board. Beat-up, filthy, falling apart Vans mark you as the real thing, someone who earned every scuff. Ever lived in a world where the more destroyed your possessions looked, the more respect they earned? Skate culture runs entirely on that inverted value system. The catch, of course, is that not everyone can skate well enough to authentically destroy their shoes, and this creates a small, telling absurdity. People who want the look without the bruises resort to distressing their Vans deliberately, scuffing the toes on concrete, fraying the laces, dragging their feet to age the canvas prematurely. They're manufacturing the appearance of experience, faking the wear that's supposed to prove authenticity. It's a strange little contradiction, ruining something new to make it look earned, and it points at something much bigger down the road. Because this instinct, the desire to look worn in and live through on purpose, is a seed. The idea that damage is desirable, that pre-distressed is a selling point, that people will actively seek out and even pay for the look of hard wear, will grow into something enormous. Ripped jeans were an early hint. Scuffed skate shoes are another. The whole logic of buying decay, of paying for the appearance of a life hard lived, is quietly taking root right here, in the scuffed toes of a skater's Vans. So you drag your feet a little on the way out, coaxing along the beautiful decay, wearing your destruction with pride. And here's the closer, frayed neatly at the lace. The scuffed up, beaten down aesthetic will seem like a scruffy niche thing, a quirk of one subculture. And then it'll spread everywhere, into distressed everything, pre-ripped, pre-faded, pre-destroyed, sold brand new at a premium to a generation happy to pay extra for the look of wear they never put in. The skaters were early. The whole world eventually caught up to their scuffed toes. Hip-hop reshapes the whole silhouette this decade, and suddenly everything is enormous. The jerseys hang to your knees, the jeans sag with deliberate looseness, the jackets could comfortably fit two of you inside. Brands like FUBU and Cross Colours turn bold colour and bigger fits into a cultural statement. Worn with gold chains that catch every light in the room, it's confident, it's loud, it takes up space unapologetically. And the oversized fit, once radical, will quietly become the default setting for an entire future generation's wardrobe. Let's start with the scale, because scale is everything here. In hip-hop style, clothing's deliberately dramatically oversized, cut large and worn larger. The jerseys hang down past the hips, sometimes to the knees. The jeans are baggy and loose, sitting low, pooling over the shoes. The t-shirts are enormous, the jackets roomy enough to swallow you whole. Nothing is fitted, nothing is tailored close to the body. The whole silhouette is about volume, about fabric, about presence that fills a room before you've said a word. The brands driving this are as important as the clothes themselves, because they represent something bigger than fashion. Labels like FUBU, which stood for a bold statement of ownership and community, and Cross Colours, with its vivid hues and messages of unity, weren't just making garments. They were building culture, creating clothing by and for a community that mainstream fashion had long ignored, turning style into a form of pride and self-definition. Wearing these labels meant something, signalled belonging, carried a message that went well beyond the fabric. The details complete the picture, and they're all about confidence made visible. Gold chains hang heavy around the neck, catching the light with every movement, bold and unmissable. Sneakers are pristine and prized, treated with a care that borders on reverence. Caps sit at precise angles. Every element works together to project self-assurance, success, a refusal to shrink or apologize. This is style as a statement of arrival, of having made it or intending to, worn with a swagger that fills whatever space it enters. Because that's the deeper thing hip-hop style is doing, taking up space on purpose. In a world that often expected certain people to make themselves small, to blend in, to stay quiet, oversized clothing and bold gold and loud colour were the opposite of all that. They declared presence. They demanded to be seen. Ever worn something that felt less like clothing and more like a statement of your own right to be here, loudly and completely? That confidence, that unapologetic claiming of space, is the beating heart of the whole aesthetic, and its influence spreads far beyond its origins, quietly reshaping how everyone dresses. The oversized fit, radical and specific at first, seeps outward into the broader culture, loosening silhouettes everywhere, making baggy normal, making room the default. What began as a distinct cultural statement becomes, over time, simply the water everyone swims in, the standard cut of a t-shirt, the expected drape of a hoodie. The style wins so thoroughly that people forget it was ever a choice at all. So you pull on the enormous jersey, let the baggy jeans pool over your sneakers, settle the gold chain against your chest, and head out taking up every inch of space you're entitled to. And here's the closer, cut generously large. This oversized look will be called excessive, sloppy, too much, by people who never understood what it was saying. And then it'll become the quiet default of an entire future generation's wardrobe. The baggy fit so normal nobody questions it. its origins half forgotten. What was once a bold cultural statement becomes the ordinary shape of clothing itself. That's not fashion fading, that's fashion winning. Deep in the underground, rave culture is cooking up the most extreme fits of them all. The fat pants are so wide they swallow your shoes entirely and drag along the floor, collecting everything in their path. Your arms are stacked wrist to elbow with candy bracelets, handmade from tiny colourful beads, traded like currency between strangers in dark warehouses. Everything glows, everything is soft, everything is designed for a night that never seems to end. It's fashion as pure, joyful excess, and it will echo forward in ways nobody dancing that night could possibly predict. Let's start with the fat pants, because they make even this decade's widest jeans look modest. These are trousers taken to a genuine extreme, legs so vast and flared that they completely engulf the feet, the fabric dragging along the ground, flapping and swaying with every movement on the dance floor. They come in bright colours, in reflective materials, sometimes trimmed with piping that catches the light. They're wildly impractical, forever getting stepped on and soaked and filthy, and that is entirely beside the point. Because these clothes were built for a specific environment, the dark, pulsing, all-night world of the underground dance party, and everything about them is designed for that world. The wide legs move dramatically as you dance, amplifying every step. The bright and reflective materials catch the strobing lights, turning your whole body into part of the light show. This isn't fashion for the street or the school hallway, it's fashion for the dance floor, for movement, for the specific magic of a room full of people and lights and sound. Then there are the candy bracelets, and these carry a meaning far deeper than decoration. Stacked up the forearm from wrist to elbow, they're handmade from small colourful plastic beads, strung together by the ravers themselves, often spelling out words or patterns. But the crucial thing is that they were made to be given away, traded between strangers on the dance floor in a small ritual of connection. A bracelet slipped from one wrist to another as a token of a shared moment. They were currency, but the currency was kindness. That spirit of connection is really what rave culture was about underneath all the colour and noise, and the clothing was built to serve it. Everything is soft, bright, playful, tactile, designed to be shared and touched and enjoyed collectively. There's a childlike joy to it, a deliberate innocence, a rejection of cool detachment in favour of open, unguarded delight. Ever been part of something where the whole aesthetic was engineered for joy and connection rather than looking tough or aloof? Rave style ran entirely on that warmth, glowing in the dark, handed wrist to wrist between people who'd never met. And though it lived in the underground, its echoes travel much further than anyone dancing at the time could have guessed. The neon, the glow, the excess, the sheer maximalist joy of it all seeps outward and forward, surfacing again and again in festival fashion, in bright accessories, in the recurring cultural hunger for colour and connection and clothing that exists purely for delight. The specific scene fades, but its DNA scatters widely, waiting in bright little fragments to be rediscovered. So you step into the enormous fat pants, stack the candy bracelets up your arm, and head out into the dark and the lights ready to trade small tokens of kindness with strangers. And here's the closer, strung on a bracelet meant to be given away. This underground style will seem too extreme, too niche, too strange to ever matter beyond its warehouses. And then its glow will keep resurfacing for decades, in festivals and neon revivals and every new generation's hunger for joyful, connective excess. The party ended long ago, but somehow out on the edges of fashion, the lights never fully went out. On the other end of the spectrum sits the polished, preppy plaid, matching skirt and blazer sets in bright yellow tartan that make you look like the most stylish person ever to attend a school. It's tidy, it's coordinated, it's a knowing wink at the buttoned-up prep of decades past, updated with attitude and a pair of knee-high socks. You feel put together in a way the flannel crowd would find suspicious. This particular look will burn itself so deeply into the culture that its revival is less a comeback and more an inevitability. Let's appreciate the sheer coordination of it, because this look is the polar opposite of the studied messiness happening elsewhere in the decade. The preppy plaid outfit is matching, deliberate, immaculately put together. A blazer and skirt in the same bright tartan, worn as a set, paired with a crisp blouse, knee-high socks and neat shoes. Every element is chosen, coordinated, intentional. Where the grunge kids cultivate the appearance of not trying, this look proudly, unapologetically tries and looks fantastic doing it. The colours are bright and preppy, and the yellow tartan in particular becomes iconic, a cheerful, sunny plaid that reads as smart and playful all at once. This is prep school style. The look of tidy academies and old money, but reworked, brightened, given attitude and edge. It takes something traditional and slightly stuffy and makes it fun, fashionable, coveted. The buttoned-up heritage is still visible underneath, but it's been updated, energized, worn by young women who mean to be admired rather than merely respectable. And it's knowing, which is a big part of its charm. This isn't preppy style worn earnestly by someone born into it. It's preppy style worn with a wink, borrowed and remixed and worn on the wearer's own confident terms. There's a self-awareness to it, a sense of playing with the codes of old-fashioned respectability rather than being bound by them. You look proper, but you look proper on purpose, with a smirk, and that layer of irony keeps the whole thing feeling fresh rather than fusty. Wearing it produces a very specific feeling, distinct from anything else in the decade's wardrobe. You feel polished, coordinated, sharp, the most put-together person in any room. Ever worn something so crisply matched and deliberate that you stood a little straighter just having it on? The preppy plaid set does that, lends its wearer a poised, confident air, a sense of being the main character in a story where everyone else got dressed in the dark. It's a look that commands a certain respect, and enjoys doing so. Its cultural staying power is where it truly separates itself, because this look doesn't just trend, it embeds. It attaches itself to a specific beloved image of the era so firmly that it becomes shorthand, instantly recognizable, permanently associated with a certain kind of 90s cool. That deep cultural imprint means it never really fades from memory the way lesser trends do. It lingers, iconic, waiting, so thoroughly lodged in the collective imagination that its eventual return isn't a surprise but a certainty. So you button the blazer, straighten the skirt, pull up the knee-high socks, and head out looking coordinated enough to make the entire flannel crowd deeply suspicious. And here's the closer, matched neatly in bright yellow tartan. This look will step out of the spotlight for a while, as all looks do. But its revival was never really in doubt, so deeply is it burned into the culture, so beloved and so instantly recognizable. It doesn't so much come back as return to claim what was always going to be its own. Some outfits fade, this one simply waits. Let's finish the look with the face, where the rules are strange and specific. The lipstick is a deep matte brown, often outlined in an even darker liner, a combination that reads as either sophisticated or slightly unwell depending on the light. The eyebrows have been plucked down to thin, surprised little arcs that you will deeply regret when they refuse to grow back. And over all of it, A fine dusting of body glitter that will migrate into every corner of your life and never ever fully leave. You are ready. You're shimmering. You are a lot. Let's start with the lips, because the brown lipstick is one of the decade's most distinctive signatures. This isn't a warm, natural nude. It's a deep, muted brown, matte and moody, sometimes bordering on a shade that seems to drain rather than add colour. It's frequently paired with an even darker brown lip liner outlining the edges, creating a two-tone effect that was considered the height of sophistication. Depending on the lighting, it lends the wearer either an air of cool, grown-up glamour or the faint suggestion that they might need to sit down. Then there are the eyebrows, and this is the part that comes with genuine regret attached. The fashion is for brows plucked thin, very thin, tweezed down into delicate high arcs that give the face a permanently surprised or quizzical expression. Achieving the look means hours in front of a mirror with tweezers, removing hair with enthusiastic dedication. What nobody mentions is that eyebrows, once overplucked, often simply refuse to grow back, leaving a legacy that outlasts the trend by decades. It's a look with a long and rueful tail. Over everything goes the glitter, and body glitter is a force of nature that must be respected. A fine shimmer dusted across the cheekbones, the shoulders, the collarbones, catching the light with every movement, adding a touch of sparkle to the whole affair. It's fun, it's festive, it's undeniably eye-catching. It is also functionally permanent in a way no one warns you about, migrating relentlessly from your skin to every surface, every fabric, every person you encounter. Ever applied a little sparkle to your face and found it, weeks later, on your pillow, your friends and objects you never touched? Body glitter is that unstoppable, a shimmer that outlives the night by a wide margin. There's a boldness to this whole approach to the face that fits the decade perfectly. None of it is subtle. The brown lip is a statement, the thin brow is a commitment, the glitter is an announcement. Makeup here isn't about looking natural or enhancing what's there quietly. It's about making choices, distinctive and specific ones, and wearing them with confidence. The face becomes another canvas for the same loud, unapologetic self-expression running through everything else in the wardrobe. And like everything else about this decade, the whole face is a package of choices that will look wildly of its moment in photographs, and everyone knows it, even while doing it. You apply the brown lip knowing full well how it'll read in 10 years. You pluck the brows with tweezers that your future self would love to confiscate. You dust on the glitter that will haunt your belongings for months. And you do all of it gladly, because looking exactly, unmistakably like this particular moment in time is, once again, entirely the point. So you blot the brown lip, arch the thin brows, dust on the final layer of glitter, and step back to admire a face that could belong to no other decade on earth. And here's the closer, shimmering at the edges. This whole face, the brown lips and the surprised brows and the relentless glitter, will be filed away as one of the era's more questionable phases. And then, inevitably, the brown lip will return, the glitter will resurface, and even the thin brow will make its cautious way back, worn by a generation who'll find it thrillingly fresh. The face of the decade, reapplied. The glitter, of course, never really left in the first place. So here's the real mystery, the one that's been humming underneath this whole strange day. Decades from now, a generation who never lived through any of this will pull every single item back out of the landfill. The wide jeans, the tiny sunglasses, the chokers, the scuffed shoes, and wear them like they're brand new. And everyone will call it nostalgia, that warm, fuzzy longing for the past. But it isn't. Not really. because you can't be nostalgic for a decade you were never alive to see. What's actually going on is something colder and cleverer, and it has to do with thrift stores and algorithms and the price of everything. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your niece's outfit the same way again. Let's clear up the nostalgia thing first, because it's the explanation everyone reaches for and it doesn't hold. Nostalgia is longing for your own past, for a time you actually lived through and remember fondly. But the generation digging all this back up wasn't born yet. They have no memories of these decades to long for. You cannot feel homesick for a house you never lived in. So whatever's pulling them toward these old styles, it isn't the warm personal ache of remembering. It's something else, something with far more practical roots. A big part of it is simply money, and specifically the price of everything. New clothing over the years becomes both more expensive and often cheaper in quality, flimsy fast fashion that falls apart in a season. Meanwhile, second-hand shops are full of sturdy old garments from decades past, built better, priced lower, available in endless variety. For a generation squeezed by costs, the thrift store isn't a quirky choice, it's an economic one. And what fills those thrift stores? The white jeans, the bombers, the flannels, the whole wardrobe you're wearing today, waiting patiently on the racks. Then there's the machinery of how trends spread now, which works nothing like it used to. Instead of magazines and shop windows slowly setting the pace, there are algorithms, feeds, endless streams of images competing for a sliver of attention. And in that environment, the old styles have a strange advantage, because they're bold, distinctive, instantly recognizable, engineered to stand out. A quiet, tasteful outfit vanishes in the scroll. A neon shell suit or a tiny pair of orange sunglasses stops the thumb cold. The very loudness that defined this decade turns out to be perfectly suited to a world built on grabbing eyes fast. There's also the swing of the pendulum, that reliable rhythm fashion always follows. Every generation reacts against the one before it. When the world goes quiet and beige and carefully tasteful, the young inevitably crave colour, chaos, boldness, excess, and they find all of it waiting in the past, ready to be reclaimed. Ever noticed how the thing your parents found embarrassing becomes the exact thing you find cool? That's not an accident. That's the engine of style itself, each era mining the wardrobes of its grandparents for whatever feels most gloriously opposite to now. So put it all together and the picture sharpens. It's cheaper, it's sturdier, it stands out in the scroll, it rebels against a beige present. And crucially, to a generation seeing it fresh, with no memory of it the first time around, it isn't old at all, it's genuinely new, discovered rather than remembered. That's the real secret. They're not looking backward with longing. They're looking at these clothes for the very first time and finding them quite reasonably brilliant. So the next time you see your niece in wide jeans and a choker and tiny useless sunglasses, and you're tempted to say you wore all that decades ago, understand what's really happening. And here's the closer, the quiet truth, humming under this whole long strange day. It was never nostalgia, because you can't miss what you never had. It was economics and algorithms and the eternal pendulum dressed up in your old clothes. The landfill, it turns out, was only ever storage, and everything you wore today, every baffling, glorious, uncomfortable choice, was simply waiting its turn to be found again, brand new, by someone who wasn't even here to remember it the first time. And so, as our long, strange day in the closet finally winds down, take a moment to appreciate just how much you survived. You woke up in a bedroom that assaulted every sense, negotiated with a closet that made impossible demands, and emerged wrapped in flannel and denim and neon, teetering on platforms, half blinded by tiny sunglasses, shedding butterfly clips and body glitter with every step. You wore jeans wide enough to house a small family and a shirt small enough to insult a toddler, all at once, and you did it with total magnificent confidence. That takes a certain kind of courage, the kind that doesn't care how the photographs will look in 30 years. Because that was always the quiet magic of it. An entire generation got dressed each morning knowing, on some level, that they looked absurd and chose to be loud anyway. They picked bold over tasteful, statement over silence, too much over not enough. They itched, they chafed, they twisted their ankles and overplucked their brows, and they kept doing it gleefully because standing out felt better than fading in. There's something oddly beautiful in that, a whole decade refusing cheerfully to whisper. And here's the gentlest truth of all, the one to carry off into sleep. Nothing you wore today was ever really thrown away. It waited. In closets and thrift stores and the backs of drawers, every baffling, glorious choice sat patiently until a new generation came along and found it brand new and loved it all over again. Fashion, it turns out, doesn't end. It just loops, softly, like a favourite song you forgot you knew. So tonight, as you settle into your own quiet bed, in whatever comfortable, sensible thing you're wearing now, spare a warm thought for the wide jeans and the loud colours and the fearless people who wore them. They weren't ridiculous. They were just unafraid. Sleep well.